Ladies and gentlemen, guys and dolls, welcome to another episode of Inside the Mug from Pod Tiki. My name is Tony, but you know that if you're signing on because, well, this is the podcast after the podcast, the after party, the after show, where we go inside the mug, where we dive inside the mug to kind of go behind the scenes and talk about stuff from the last episode. It's been a while, guys. It's been a while. What are you guys doing today? What are you guys drinking today? It's not very tiki, I'm sorry, but I'm drinking an old fashioned. I'm drinking an old fashioned because it's kind of cold here in Nashville right now. Not as cold as some of you guys. Don't send me your messages about how you live in Buffalo and Minnesota. I know my wife's from Minnesota. I've been there. I know it's freaking cold. I get it. But a Florida boy who lives in Tennessee now, this is cold for me. You know, and this week we're dipping down. I'm not sure when you guys are going to see this, but we're dipping down. We're getting snow this weekend. Ooh, like an inch. Ooh. But Nashville does not know how to handle the snow. And it's like going to be in the teens this weekend. It's super cold. Anyway, that's neither here or there. I'm drinking my old fashioned with Maker's 46, which I wouldn't normally make an old fashioned out of this, but I went, in the wintertime, I kind of start craving things, like besides the sipping rums, I start craving bourbons because I love bourbon. Before I got into rums, I guess I've been into rums growing up in Florida my whole life. But in Tennessee, when I first lived here, before I really got into tiki hardcore, bourbon was my first love, and I'm surrounded by it here in Nashville, from coming down from Kentucky, coming up from Georgia, coming from the Carolinas, the moonshine, the whiskeys, the corn oils, all that stuff, man. It's Tennessee, in fact, Nashville in general has a lot of great whiskeys. But I don't got to tell you all about that, you know that. But I wouldn't normally use Makers in a old fashioned, but I happen to have a bottle of that Makers 46 because I've been craving it. That Makers 46, I'll tell you what, for the price, that oak, that it's got a real like charred oak. The woodiness really comes through. It's got a vanilla kind ofness to it. It's a creaminess. Man, it's so good. And as a cigar smoker, my buddy Rich May told me this a long time ago, and we actually agreed on this. We were sitting around having a cigar one time and just having a drink, and we both came to the conclusion that I think the Old Fashioned is the perfect cigar smoking cocktail. It goes great. As far as cocktail goes. Rum, straight up, but cocktail, Old Fashioned. And you can make an Old Fashioned with rum, so that's neither here nor there. So, we are back, first of the year, first show of the year. Thank you guys so much for sticking through. The content's been kind of waning during the holiday season. I know that. I'm sorry. The podcast is going strong, but the video content's been kind of struggling. So what did we do in the last episode? Inside the Mug usually is about the stuff we did in the last episode, the behind-the-scenes stuff. Catch y'all up on my holiday season. I did that in the podcast episode, the 2023 recap. It's been a weird year. Some medical stuff, everything's okay, but we moved in the middle. It kind of threw the show up a little bit because I don't have the space I had before to kind of do the stuff I used to do. We used to live a little bit outside of town and had more room. Now we moved back into the city, which we love, but when you live in the city, the places are a little bit more smaller, so I don't have the space to do the visual content I used to. I'm sorry. But I'm still trying to find, we haven't been here during the summer yet, so I'm trying to find little nooks and crannies to kind of take nice photos and do things like this. So, the last episode of Pod Tiki, before the year-end recap, was the Eggnog by the Glass from Jerry Thomas. And last year, I went on a real deep dive into classic cocktails and really fell in love with Imbibe by David Wondrich. And just really, what a great writer. And everything about those classic cocktails really informs what we do in the tiki genre. And I know I'm not. You're looking like I don't look like I'm tiki at all right now. I'm sorry. I look like I should be drinking. I look like a Kentucky drinking bourbon guy, but it's freaking cold here, man. I got, I am wearing my daiquiri shirt from Pearl Diver, local, not a tiki bar, but a local tropical postmodern vintage bar. It's really awesome. Actually, they don't call themselves a tiki bar, but they make better drinks than some of the tiki bars I've been to. So if you're ever in Nashville, go check out Pearl Diver. Daiquiris till I die. So anyway, the year-end recap was fun, but before that, Jerry Thomas Eggnog by the Glass. Now, if you guys listen to the show for a while, you know I always do the George Washington's eggnog every year. That's my big batch. My wife and I love that. It's actually the only eggnog that she'll drink. But this year I wanted to do something kind of classic cocktail, but still Christmassy. So I did Eggnog by the Glass. And, egg drinks go back way to the colonial era. The flip, things like that. Eggs were pretty common in a drink. So the idea of making a nog was not even really a Christmas thing. It was an all the time thing. And then it eventually became a cold weather thing, and then a holiday thing. Which kind of makes sense when you think about the idea of whether you're religious, spiritual, or secular. The idea of the holiday season, the wintertime, the solstice, Christmas, being this time where we come together as a family because we have to, because it's cold outside and it's time. The harvest is done. We get to feast on the harvest. We have to eat it before it's gone, before it goes bad. So you get the indulgence of the wintertime. You get the fact that we're all locked in and with each other. So that creates an intimate atmosphere, and it lends itself to the things that we as Catholics go through the Christmas season. So it's all the same vibe. So I really I love that season. I love the Christmas time. Now after Christmas, especially here in Nashville, it's gonna be cold and gray and rainy and crappy, probably until St. Patrick's Day at least. So there's like 2 months of nothingness, which kind of sucks. If you guys have listened to the podcast for a while, I've talked about this. I can't stand this time of year. I hate it. It's a very but it's a good time to do a factory reset. I'm trying to get back into my wellness, physical, mental, spiritual. 2023 was a tough year, like I said. So this year I'm trying to reboot, defragment, get, kind of do a factory reset on my total wellness as a person. I know wellness is a term that's kind of overused nowadays, but I want to get back into some of the good practices that I was, last time I had a crisis in life, I went through like this severe renaissance, and I don't think I'm quite there, but I think a lot of us coming out of COVID and then going past what we used to be, now it's time to reel it back in a little bit, and 2024 I think is going to be a rebuilding year, right? Like they say in the NFL. And I'm excited about it. Lots of good things on the horizon for the podcast. I feel good. I feel very aware. Especially even in my fun. Like while I'm drinking old fashioned right now. I love tiki drinks. You guys, this is a tiki drink podcast. You guys know that. Rum is my passion. But I often feel that rum makes me a little silly, a little dumb. And when I stick to beer or bourbon or wine, I'm more clear. And maybe it's just because I don't drink as much. Maybe because in tiki cocktails, like there's a lot of rum in every cocktail. So you drink a lot more than you normally would if you were just sipping on something. But this year I'm going to try to find a nice balance, but I'm going to go back to old school tiki, and we're starting off the fresh year with a traditional 1930s down the beachcomber tiki drink, which will be out soon if you're watching this. And it's going to be a great year. But as far as the eggnog by the glass, there's not really much behind the scenes. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode with Chris. Me and Chris used to do a show called Share Your Buzz. We still do it periodically, but it's not as weekly as it used to be. But Chris is he's one of my 4 best friends in the entire world, my brothers, and I I love them dearly. I love him dearly, and we're gonna be doing a lot more stuff together in the new year. But I hope you guys enjoyed that show. Excuse me. We got a little tipsy on that show, so I apologize for that. But those eggnog drinks, man, that eggnog by the glass, eggnog, whatever it is about eggnog, maybe it's the holiday season thing, but they're all so freaking boozy. It's like you can't, unless you go get the eggnog from the store, which is gross, but then add your own rum to it. Like a homemade eggnog with the alcohol, mixed in it, they all call for so much booze. It's amazing and awkward at the same time because it's just a lot. So, and it's so delicious, you want to drink more of it, and you get, it lends itself to the jolliness of the season. It elevates everything. As my as a Catholic, we took a Jewish seminar at one point to learn about different religions and our Jewish brethren. And one of the things that they were talking about was drinking wine on the feasts to elevate the situation. And I thought that was kind of funny because that's kind of what we do in Tiki, right? We go out and we meet up, and we can sit there and we can just have a conversation and hang out with our friends, and it'd be fine. But it definitely elevates it with a couple of Mai Tais. But I digress again. I'm rambling. I'm sorry. I ramble on all of these. When you're doing a show by yourself, I tend to talk kind of fast and throw things out there. Sorry for that. But the eggnog by the glass was definitely more of a cocktail than a creamy eggnog. When it gets to sit in the fridge and ferment, it gets creamier and creamier. And there wasn't really any heavy cream in this. It was milk and egg. So it definitely turns out more like a lighter, on the rocks kind of cocktail, but with that eggnog kind of flavor to it. It's really good. I will definitely make some more next year, but I think, prefer the old-fashioned big batch of George Washington eggnog, and you put it in the fridge, and you make a batch of it that makes about 4 bottles, and you have a bottle for tasting, and then the 3 bottles, that's to save for when it's actually ready, and they get creamier and better and smoother and more refined along the way. I just like that aged eggnog more than a fresh one. Sorry for taking a sip. Sorry for saying sorry. Somebody told me a long time ago when I first started doing these, stop apologizing for taking a sip. Anyway, I have to say that there's some news. So, when I started doing these Inside the Mugs, I wanted to do the behind-the-scenes stuff about the podcast that I didn't really get to talk about, some personal stuff, all that. And I knew that YouTube was a big medium that a lot of people were getting involved in. Same thing when I do the how-to make the cocktail drinks. But I am both excited and also remiss to say that this is going to be the last episode of Inside the Mug as a video show. Inside the Mug is going to be transferred as the Patreon show for the podcast, an audio-only Patreon show. Now, Pod Tiki does a Patreon right now where you can sign on for $3 a month. It's not that expensive. Support your show, and I never really had anything to offer for the Patreons, for the patrons. I do a couple of shows here and there, but nothing. I didn't really know what to do for them, and I feel like turning this into a Patreon-only show will give them something to offer that only they get, the exclusivity, and you'll be able to support the show. And also, when I signed up for this, I kind of realized that there's so many great, when I started the Tiki podcast, there's not that many Tiki podcasts. I really only found one other one, and they don't really focus on the drinks the way that Pod Tiki does. So I venture to say, as far as I know, I think I'm the only Tiki drink podcast. So I'm going to focus more on that and make that show better and put more production and more things into that. Because as far as YouTube is concerned, there's already so many great Tiki YouTubes. Like the how to make the drinks. They got better production than me. They have better, this is more of like a fireside chat type thing, but they have real production and real, I don't always agree with the research they do. They're not always correct, and the community is not as welcoming, but I thought that would be the better way to do it. So I'm going to let them handle that, and I'm going to focus on the audio stuff. So this will be the last episode of Inside the Mug as a video show, and if you want to catch Inside the Mug from here going forward, you'll have to go to patreon.com/podtikipodcast and sign up. It's only $3 a month. It's super easy. It's not that much. And we'll have a lot of inside stuff going on there. I'll bring Chris back. I'll have Mrs. Podtiki on once in a while. We might do the drink tastings on the show, and because there's too many people already doing video that's not my medium. I'm going to focus on the audio, and that will be from here on out. I do appreciate everybody that signed on to Podtiki, to the Inside the Mug on YouTube. I'm still going to put out some video content here or there. Any new music or videos or special events will be broadcast on the YouTube channel. So please stay subscribed. But I just find that there's a lot more people interested in the podcast than the video. So I'm going to let the guys that do video, and I'm going to focus on the audio. But I really do want to thank all you guys so much for staying involved. Please switch over to the podcast feed. It's Podtiki across everything. Spotify is where I do most of my stuff. iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher Radio. You can always find us on social media. Instagram is where I do most of my stuff at pod_tiki. We're on that new Threads app, Podtiki. We're on Facebook as Podtiki. We're just Podtiki across the board. You'll find us. Just Google everything. It's Google. You just put in Podtiki, you find anything. So, again, mahalo. Thank you so much. And 2024 is looking good. We're really excited about it. And so, yeah, I guess that's it, guys. I'm going to go finish my old-fashioned and carry on with my weekend. I hope you guys do the same. Yeah, thank you so much, and I'll see you guys on the podcast feed, and I'll see you patrons on the Patreon. Good stuff coming. Thank you so much. And for the very last time, sorry, but I gotta do it to you guys. I gotta squeeze you back inside the mug. I mean, maybe one day it will come back out, but for now, I'm